know, like we're recording, that voice doesn't actually record.
No, never.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
I did not realize that. And I was like, oh, interesting.
We have stated though that why we say that sometimes.
Yes.
So at least people don't think that we're like, we now. And it's like, you know what?
You know what?
What
What's
are you
happening?
talking about? You fucking live with that. Anyways, welcome back. So we just finished recording a PS episode and a little topic came up and we were like, let's record that right now. Because we did have to record an episode. And I think that this is one that is going to be really good for people to hear and just validating, because I have a lot of clients share, not share, but like ask or question if I feel things or if I go through things. So welcome to episode 99, where we talk about, as therapists, we don't struggle. We don't go through things ever.
I have everything figured out all the time.
My life is wonderful and I have the answers for everything. So if you come see me, I will always have an answer. I have a wand, actually. And I pull it out sometimes, and I do bibbity boppity boop and you're fixed.
Yep.
So we want to debunk this myth or thought process or understand whatever it is that therapists don't struggle with things. So Stephanie had a really good analogy in the PS of like, that'd be like going to a dentist and saying that they don't get cavities or that they don't need dental work, like going to a doctor, they don't get sick. You know, nurses don't smoke. All of these things that these people go, like financial advisors are great with money.
Right.
No. So there is this misunderstanding, and we can only speak to therapists, right? Because I don't do any of those other jobs, but as therapists, there is this notion when people come see me, I do have clients share of like, well, do you ever struggle with these things? Do you, like, what is that? Like, do you go through these things? Do you must have it figured out, or you must just be a great communicator, and all of these things that they state. And I immediately stop the session and challenge that right away and offer bits of vulnerability that I'm comfortable with being able to share with them. But like, realistically, I'm a human being on this earth. I absolutely struggle. I absolutely go through things. First and foremost, I'm divorced. My parents divorced. Like, I've been through a couple of traumatic events. Like, I have some residual trauma. Like it's not that I've never been through anything. Right. That's not what shoved me into being a therapist. That is a thing that does happen, right? Of like, therapists sometimes come from their own experiences and wanting to help people. I think that I just always knew that I wanted to help people regardless. And then my parents' divorce is not a trauma, nor is my divorce a trauma. There have been other things that have happened. Some things that I have shared on the podcast and some that who knows if I ever will. But realistically, looking at my life, like I knew that I wanted to be a therapist before that. And it just makes me a better therapist, makes me more empathetic. But like, we absolutely go through shit.
I'm going to ask you something. I think I already know the answer to this because I feel like we've talked about it before. Have you ever cried in a session with a client?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 weeks ago.
Same.
I'm not even kidding. 2 weeks ago, a client shared with me that there was an incident where their child was exposed to, I don't think it's another child exposed themselves to their child. There is an age difference there. So there is predatory feelings, but also as a therapist, I'll speak for myself, like to state like there's a function behind the behavior, something else is going on there. And that client was we have a very good relationship. That client was very upset. And like watching that happen and watching somebody experience that is like, absolutely. I got teared up. Absolutely. Watching, God, it almost, I think the same week, the day before. Yeah. Last Tuesday and last Wednesday. Wednesday was the client where I actually did tear up. And then Tuesday doing EMDR with a client had an extremely big release, extremely big of coming to this understanding and notion of like separating responsibility during things, during her traumas, and just it was after the past was over and I just allowed her to sit in the emotions and like express it. Like it was one of those cries where like you can hear and feel the hurt, like just a sobbing. And I was like, oh, oh God.
Mhm.
I was like, wrap it up.
Mhm.
Not that I don't think that I want to share those emotions with client. If it was a traditional session, I would absolutely be like, okay, let's pause for a minute. I'm getting a little
Mhm.
misty eyed. I'm feeling that from you. But in an EMDR session, I want to keep processing through the trauma. So very much so have to put a mask on for a moment. And then when we're done and we all come down, share that validation of like, I felt that it blah, 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 whatever. But absolutely. Yeah, I fucking cried. And it's not like a regular thing, but
I think it's outlandish to assume that therapists could keep it together when it's an extremely emotional moment, right?
yeah,
We're human beings. Now in school, are we trained to
100%.
like be professional and things like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm also a fucking human being.
Yeah,
So,
but this isn't like brainwashing of like don't like where
right.
this isn't like fucking going over and like Russian secret ops of like get it
Yes.
together and they're like the fucking like military training. I'm a human being. I have to be able to have access to my emotions to be empathetic with these people. You were there for the very first time that I really did experience like the extreme emotions of being a therapist when
Mhm.
we were at Rogers and I had to send a client home because we worked with teens at that time. The client was very suicidal, had a plan, had a way to be able to potentially act on it. And her guardians said that, I can keep them safe.
Mhm.
And I, in my core, my soul did not feel that that was accurate. And I advocated for myself and I advocated for my attending to do something about it and for my client and all, because my client wanted help, wanted
Mhm.
to go inpatient. And it was out of my hands. And man, after programming ended, I went to your office and you were there, you supported me through that of like 100%. I get where I feel those feelings do because it's terrifying. It absolutely
Mhm.
is. And just attempt not to catastrophize like in these ways and blah, blah, blah. So 100% we feel things.
Mhm.
When's the last time you think you got close to or teared up?
It's probably been quite a few months that I can remember, but I think the last time I did, it was because my client was sharing something that happened with her son that was very scary. And my immediate thought
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, I wouldn't even know what to do if this was me. And then I got like emotionally overwhelmed and I was like, bitch, get it together. Like you have to support her. You know what I'm saying? But
Calm down. Yeah.
I can remember in 2018, I was working with a client who was debating divorce. And that
Mhm.
was right around the time that we decided that we were getting divorced. And I can remember in session, I was tearing up because she was talking about her daughter. And in my head, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to deal with this. She goes, honey, are you okay? And I was like,
No.
no. And she was like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm going through something similar. And I just was like vulnerable because I was like, I can't keep it in. Like that was an
Mhm.
emotionally turbulent time in my life. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not
Yes.
going to try to fucking act like I can keep it together when I can't.
No.
That was the
Right.
honest answer of like, this is
Right.
what I'm going through right now. I appreciate you asking me, even though I'm your therapist. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
but that's
And
the
I think,
reality.
yes. And I think they asked too to be like, did I say something wrong?
Yes.
Did I, like,
Yes.
is this okay to talk about? Right. And just to be able to offer that validation of like, no, bitch, I'm going through the same thing.
Yes.
I'm worried. Like
I can remember
100%.
another time I got tearful because I got angry, not angry with the client, but I was going through so much internally. That was before I was diagnosed with RA and I was just struggling all the time. And I had a very oppositional teen client and it was a very rough family session. And he was like pointing the finger at me, like, you don't even care about me, like being
Yeah.
nasty. And I
Yeah.
got real defensive and I was like, it really bothers me that you say I don't care about you. If I didn't care, I wouldn't see you anymore. Like I'm
Hmm.
seeing you for a reason. And
Hmm.
I didn't love my reaction, but that was the reality of where I was at
Yeah.
emotionally that day.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this the very first time I teared up in outpatient therapy. When I was at the agency that we both worked at,
Mhm.
I had to do an interview for a little girl to assess whether or not there had been sexual abuse.
Mhm.
And her parents were in the room. She was 4, maybe 5. And it came out, and I was like, and then just watching mom lose it and
Yep.
the little girl lose it. And then like, I think that they were like all everyone's in shock, right? And I was like, do you need a hug? And she was like,
Mhm.
and I was like, you can go to your mom, honey. It's okay. And then I was like, because Soph was like the same age at
Yeah.
that time. And I was like, oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up, wrap it up. And then in my own business, over a year ago, my teen who was suicidal attempted, went inpatient, um, came out, met with mom and her afterwards after she resumed with me. And she's um she's a I'm trying to figure out how to do this without, she's older. Mannerisms though sometimes remind me of Sophia. Birthdays are close
Mm-hmm.
and signs are the same. And so I like talking to her and safety planning and saying
Mm-hmm.
like, because again, I think teens get into this space where it's like, no one cares about me. It's
Mm-hmm.
this black and white, right? And trying to help them understand your prefrontal cortex isn't developed yet, understand why it is this black and white. Like realistically, there are people who love and care about you and want you
Mm-hmm.
here. And not that I'm saying that I love this kid, but like I'm saying like I want you here. I see my daughter in you sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
I would be devastated. Like I'm just feeling what your mom is feeling right now and feeling what you're feeling right now. And like
Mm-hmm.
I got teared up and I was like, you belong here. You deserve to be here. And I think in those moments, no matter who the client is, I will always have that like, ooh, like
Mm-hmm.
feeling of like, because I don't ever want somebody to feel like that. And I'm well aware that I can't control people's feelings, but I can advocate, I can
Sure.
validate and attempt to get them to see like you deserve to be here, you belong here. Like there are so many times that we just deal with that heaviness that comes with that, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I love what I do. I am built for this. I don't want to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I could when I say like I'm not good at anything else. That's not real. Like I'm good at a lot of things, but like I'm good at my job.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason I'm here for this. And so just like takes so much out of you sometimes because you're hearing all of these traumas, all of these moments, these struggles. And sometimes some of the things that I'm hearing, I'm like, I go home and I think about how would I ever fucking deal with that? If that was my life, what the
Constantly.
fuck would I even do?
Constantly.
And so you're just trying to provide support and find things. But again, there are moments too, not even just like we don't go through things, but there are moments where we don't have an answer. We
Correct.
don't have a book that we pull out and are like, oh, okay, this happened. So see this page and then see this page. And then that's
Mm-hmm.
what you're supposed to do. There just isn't an answer sometimes. And I think those are the hardest fucking sessions, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the hardest sessions when it's like, I literally don't have anything to give you. And you're looking at me and I know that you want something from me. And I wish I had it. I wish I could fucking give it to you, but I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think the question, how are you, is asked so much that I'm on autopilot when I answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially because like clients will ask like, how are you? And I just have to say like, I'm good. Like, I'm all right. Um, However, this week I had a client ask me and I was like, you know what? I'm here. Like, that's the honest answer is I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, like, is everything okay? And I talked a little bit about like
No.
what happened on Monday, right?
Yeah.
But even with friends, I'll have friends reach out. I had a friend reach out yesterday and she's like, how are you? I was like, do you want like the polite answer or like the real answer? Because I'll give you both. Like, which one do you want to know? And she's like, well, first of all, I never want the polite answer.
Yeah.
And she said, like, it's got to be hard to show up as a therapist every day and be compassionate and empathetic when you're going through your own stuff. And I was like, yeah, but I think people have this assumption that not that I'm not allowed to go through things because I have to be there for them. Although sometimes it does feel that way. Not saying that's a fact.
Depending
Yes.
on the client, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Because for example, on Monday I had to cancel one client and the receptionist called to do that. And the woman's response was, well, I need her to email me her available times. So I very curtly emailed her and I said, I'm at the emergency vet with my dog. Here's my availability. Like, you were told that I had an emergency, but yet you still felt the need to demand that I email you my availability because I had to cancel.
Which the receptionist could have given you, but
Correct.
you didn't want to speak to the receptionist.
Correct.
Okay. I don't ever give the polite answer. I don't ever give a fake answer. I don't. 100%. Here's the thing. I expect honesty from you. So I'm gonna be honest as fuck with my clients. It's not like I'm like, oh God, really struggling today, but I'll definitely tailor my answer of like, I'm well, I'm okay, a little frazzled from, a session or like something that like, I'll give a short snippet so that they can understand. Or if it's been a day, like a day, and I have a session, I will preface in the beginning of that session, look, it has been a very long day. I've had to do a couple of things, or like, I had a client in crisis or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like I'll frame that so they understand where my body language, my responses,
Yes.
my tone, where that's coming from. Right. Because in therapy, as much as I say to my clients, look, you have full authority to say something to me, to check me, to say I didn't like that, to say, I don't like the way that was said, like, or like my interpretation is blah, blah, blah. I want you to be honest with me because I can't I can't help challenge perceptions or how you interpret something unless you tell me that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that that's hard to do, right? Because if I think sometimes, a lot of the time, they come in looking at us like in this position of power,
Sure.
right? Of like, well, I'm coming to you for advice or life support or blah, 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 blah. So what do you, but I'll say to them, like, just this preface of like, look, I've been through the ringer. I have space for you. Absolutely. Please know that if my responses come across more frank or blunt, that it has absolutely nothing to do with this session and just what has happened just throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or even if I'm waiting for something, like if I'm waiting for a call or whatnot, or like the day that my ex forgot Sophia,
Mm-hmm.
I had to go into a session. I was in a telehealth session, and I saw the unknown number calling me, but it was a 262. And I was like, okay, I'm not sure. I was like, can you just hold on a second? Called it, answer it. And I was like, oh my God. So then got off the phone, text him, and just told the person, like, you're just going to have to wait a couple of minutes because I need to make sure that this is figured out. Just being open and vulnerable and honest. Like you need to watch me go through it. But then I think in my mind too, of like, this is a way to model vulnerability. It's a way to model like how I'm moving through a difficult situation, how I can move through and focus on, guess what's not in my control, whether or not he picks her up, where he is, what's going on. But I can facilitate the pieces to make sure that somebody goes and gets her. And then I can stop, take a deep breath, and refocus on you. Because again, it does me no good to sit and worry about things I can't control. I've moved the pieces that I need to move. Somebody is going to get her. Someone's texting me. She's with someone safe. Okay. Does that make sense?
I've had to preface sessions too if I have a terrible migraine, because you can see it on my face and I look like I don't want to be there because I'm miserable, of like, I just have a very bad headache. I'm like here with you. My head hurts really bad. Right. Or the one morning my dad called me to say my mom was in a car accident and I was on my way to work and I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Right. And so I was very honest with my client of like, I just need you to know that like I'm all over the place because my mom was in an accident and I'm just waiting to hear from her. And he was very understanding. He was very kind. Have I had clients get frustrated if they are not my primary focus? Yes.
100%. All the time. Which
is kind of hurtful, to be honest, right? Because I still have to put myself first before I do anything, right?
I think that is
all the time.
I think that's a thing that is like, I think people hear it when we say like, you need to put yourself first. When it's being modeled though, and then boundaries are put in place, I think it's like, there's this personalization on the other end when, again, we're not in control of that.
Correct.
And it can be hurtful. And I take that moment of like, well, I'm reacting to their interpretation of the boundary that I'm setting. I know the boundary that I'm setting is necessary. It's absolute. And that's just what it is. And I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm not. I refuse. Because it's important to me, especially when I have to like cancel sessions because people didn't pay on time or reschedule things because things get changed and moved around. Like I and it's a constant thing that I have to say to myself, but like, I don't need to apologize for being there for my daughter. I don't need to apologize for taking time for myself because I'm sick. I don't need to apologize for blah, 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 whatever that it is. But I think the situation is hurtful, right? I don't think that the clients do it on purpose or like whatever, but again, people aren't going to like your boundaries when you set them. They're not there. A lot of people, our society is not used to boundaries being set. That's not my problem. What's my problem and what's in my control is setting these boundaries to make sure that I'm safe.
Well, and sometimes after the week that I had this week, granted, this is not going to come out for a couple of weeks, but the week that I had this week, every morning I woke up, I would tell myself like, I don't have it in me, even though I knew that I did. I just emotionally felt like I didn't. However, I would get to work then and I would be so distracted by the session. I wouldn't be thinking about all the stress that I had in the week. So it was helpful. Right. But I don't actually know that until I get there. And sometimes that's harder than other times. And that just is the honest truth of what I go through on a daily basis of being alive.
There are definite moments where I set in my head of like, I don't feel like I can do this today. And so I say a prayer on the way to work, whether it be to God or the universe. Say what I'm thankful for, what I'm grateful for that day. And then I do it like the chain link things, like the countdowns you used to have when you were in grade school of like 9 hours, here we go. 8 hours, here we go. 7 hours, here we go. And sometimes I'll text you or I'll text Jeff and I'll be like, okay, 6 more to go. Mainly Jeff. but like, I'll be like 6 more to go. And he's like, you can do it, like blah, 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 like, or whatever. And again, by the time when we're looking at the totality of the day, it seems absolutely overwhelming. But once you get there and you're in it, it's like, there's only 4 more left. This is completely okay. And again, then it's, I can make this hour go by way faster if I am zoned in on what
present.
they're talking about and trying to give a skill or teach something like that, because then it's just going to be an immediate, like 50 minutes later. And I'm like, oh shit, we're almost done.
Yep.
So we absolutely do go through things. We absolutely do struggle.
I've had people ask me, well, do you actually use the skills that you teach? And I'm like, I do.
100%.
Are there times that it's harder for me to use them than others? Yeah. 100%. I'm not going to act like I'm fucking perfect at it, because I'm definitely not.
I've had that a lot with the communication thing. A lot of people are like, you use these styles of communication. I'm like, 1000%. Absolutely. And I will tell them when in areas where it's harder for me to do that, I text versus having a face-to-face conversation. Like if there's something there's a lot of things that I'm undoing from relationships that I've had. And while Jeff and I do have really good, deep conversations, vulnerable conversations in person, there are some conversations that are a bit harder for me to have in person because I have a lot of shame and or whatever attached to it. So then I text. I absolutely tell them, I get my message out. I restructure the things that I need to say. I need to make sure that it is coming across as vulnerable and open, however, taking accountability for my emotions and not projecting. And then I send it and send it through. And then it feels good for me of like, I said what I needed to say. I'm giving this person space to be able to react to me or respond or do what they need. And then now it's just like a set it and forget it type thing, which there are definite moments where it's, especially with my parents, with my mom, there are moments where it is hard to have those conversations with my mom because there are some very set ideas in place. However, I have to understand too, the way that I approach it is also like, how is it going to be received? Right. I sometimes go straight into therapist mode where it's like, okay, take a step back. You're her daughter. And so it probably doesn't feel good to being told, you know, what you need to do or what's the correct way or what's this or what's that. And then too, recognizing where my biases are and where my biases, and I need to put up space. Like, I don't talk about religion or politics or those things with people. I just don't. I don't. You think what you want to think. I'm going to think what I want to think. And that's where we're going to be. I'm not in a debate club. I'm not on the Senate floor. I'm not doing it. I'm not in the
running for Supreme Court.
I'm not in the Supreme Court. Shout out to Wisconsin, flipping our Supreme Court blue. But anyways, so I'm not going to do all of that. But yeah, we absolutely do struggle with things. There are things that are very difficult for us on a day-to-day basis because we experience life. I think though, as a testament to what we talk about and what we preach and what we attempt to show our clients is that you have to show up daily and consistently, right? It's not about the effort that you're giving in that day. It's the consistency. I'm going to consistently show up for myself. And some days that looks like I'm going to do a bomb ass workout, meal prep, everything, you know, self-care, all the things. And some days I'm going to move from my bed to the couch and I'm going to take a shower and then I'm going to go back to my bed, and that's completely okay. I give myself space to be and feel and do what I need to do. So this was so fun. I love it. You can find Steph at The Spooky Therapist. You can find me at BEA_XO11. You can find us at Rewriting Her Story Podcast, all on Instagram. You can email us any questions, concerns, comments at rewritingherstorypodcast@gmail.com, and on YouTube, Rewriting Her Story Podcast, in case you want to see our faces. Until next time, guys. Bye.